Welcome to the Paranormal Papa Podcast, episode 15, coming to you from Ferocious Feline Studios in Cassopolis, Michigan. I know I promised you guys live interviews would be starting here real soon, but sadly, due to scheduling issues, we were unable to pull it off this week. If you or your paranormal team would like to sit down for an interview, a live interview on Paranormal Papa Podcast, drop us a line at midwestparahistoricsociety at gmail.com and we'll see what we can get scheduled. But tonight, in place of the live interview that fell through, we have got an interview with Joe Franke. And tonight he is going to talk about everything from working with the Warrens to starting his own paranormal association for research to whether or not ghosts are real. Check this out because this is good.
Are ghosts real?
They are.
They are?
They are.
Well,
I mean, it's a matter of opinion, but in my opinion, they are. I've dealt with them for almost 37 years of my life.
now you worked with the Warrens, correct?
Yep. I was 18 when I met the Warrens.
I've had a burning question, and it kind of stems from the movies, but I do want to know if Lorraine really had the gift.
Yes.
Really?
She had the gift. She was a clairvoyant. She could read your aura. If you ever heard the term aura,
Okay.
it's that supernatural glow that emanates, from everyone. And she definitely had the gift. She found out she had the gift when she was, probably your age, early teens, mid-teens, when she went to Laurelton Hall in Milford, Connecticut. And she used to see these. She didn't know what it was at the time, but she would see things around the nuns, that were there teaching, and they used to get mad at her because she would tell them things that no one else knew. But yes, she was very gifted. Lorraine Warren was very gifted.
Were you ever with her at any time when she kind of just stopped, and it really got whole room got quiet, and she's blocked?
Oh yeah. I was up at, one thing that comes to mind, a case in Colby Sawyer College up in New Hampshire. My wife, who I think she was just my girlfriend at the time, we weren't married, but this is back in 91, maybe, 1991. And Colby Sawyer College was alleged to be haunted by the spirit of Mr. William Colby. Nothing bad. It wasn't anything demonic or anything like that, but there were a few spirits there. And what we did was, there was some college students there, there were some people from the college newspaper, and we had, we all sat around in this big room, living room, and Lorraine was talking to one of the servants' spirits that was just going about her everyday job. And Lorraine, through her mind's eye, was communicating with it, and I was asking questions, much like you are, and Lorraine was getting the answers from the spirit. It was really interesting. And that's how, we would work with her. She would see these things and talk to them. And she's like, "Dear, you're dead." And no one was like, "What are you talking about?" "I'm taking care of Master Colby." So she was still alive doing her job. And I don't know, it was 18 something. And you could smell this lavender scent. It was her perfume, according to what Lorraine said. We smelled this lavender, and lavender was one of Lorraine's favorite fragrances. But yeah, ghosts are very real, and they're not all bad. TV wants you to believe that because it wants to scare you. That scare factor, because it turns into money, big bucks. These TV movies and Hollywood movies, these theatrical movies that you see. That's what puts butts in the seats, right? You guys all like scary, thrilling movies, things like that. But that's actually very rare. Stuff like that, it's rare. But this was kind of a cool, what we call earthbound spirit. It was a cool story. Okay. And I think we took 4 or 5 pages of notes, writing down what Lorraine was saying, the questions and the answers, but the answers were coming from the spirit world. So it's really, really interesting.
So you started working with them when you were 18, you said?
I was 18 years old. I'll tell you the story, because I remember it like it was 5 minutes ago. It was at the Holiday Inn in North Haven off exit 12.
Okay.
I think it's Ramada now. I'm not sure what it is. It's still there, next to Arby's. Well, Laurel, my wife, had seen in the local newspaper that they were doing a lecture. And it was on a Friday night, and she's like, would you like to go? I'm like, yeah, well, why not? We were just dating at the time. I was 18. So we went there, and Lorraine looked at me when she first saw me, and she was looking at me strange, and she kind of turned her head to the side. She's like, honey, have we met before? And I said, no, Lorraine, I've heard a lot about you. I've seen you guys on television and read about you in print media, the radio, things like that. And she's looking at me. Now, I didn't know what she was doing at the time, but she was reading my aura. And she's like, there's a reason you're here tonight. She was, make sure you come and see Ed and I after the show. So I was really excited. Here I'm like, well, what do they want to talk to me about? This is interesting. Couldn't keep a thought in my head. So, they did their program, which was very fascinating. And, Lorraine was talking to the crowd. Everybody was kind of breaking up and leaving. They're all coming up for autographs and things. And Ed's packing up, and Ed's like, come on, kids, let's go. I'm hungry. So the diner across the street, Athenian Diner or something, we went over there. Lorraine was sitting across from me, and she was holding my hand, and she was telling me what she was doing. She was reading my aura, and she looks at me and she says, honey, you were meant to do this work. She's like, would you like to come and work with Ed and I? Yeah. Picture that. You get Ed and Lorraine Warren asking you if you'd like to be one of their students. And I said, absolutely. So, from there, they used to give their classes in the back room of a place in Newtown called Hawley Manor. The building's still there, but I think it's the inn at Newtown now. But there was a room, and we'd go in the back room there, and there'd maybe be 8 or 10 chairs set up for people. And I think there was only like 6 of us there. It was Laurel and I and maybe 4 or 5 other people, students. And as far as I know, the students that were in that room, I'm the only one left. I don't know, I haven't kept in touch with any of the other ones, but the year was 1986. You guys weren't born yet, I don't think. So what Ed would do is he would bring in his case files, his notes, his tape recorder, and he would play for us the interviews and the tapes and show us videotapes from the cases that they worked on, such as The Conjuring House, Amityville. Amityville was the one that freaked me out the most. All right, again, I'm 18 years old. I was a big kid, big guy. I was like 265 when I was in high school, It doesn't matter how big and strong you are. Yeah. You need to be strong psychologically, emotionally, physical strength has not much to do with spiritually. You really need to be strong. And people ask me all the time, well, weren't you scared? And I go, then, yeah, I was scared. I'm just a guy. I'm just a regular guy with an irregular hobby, But anyway, he would play these tapes and then he'd abruptly shut them off and say, okay, kid, that's enough. He goes, I don't want to give these things too much recognition. What he was playing, in addition to the interviews by the people that lived there and telling their story, he was playing demonic voices that would come out of thin air. We would hear growling noises. I've got some on tape. I'm going to show Saturday when we do the show at Lyman Hall Saturday. And, I'm sitting there all hair standing up on my whole body. I got goosebumps everywhere. And that would be the class, and it'd say, this is what happened, this is what we did about it. We had to bring in, this one, we had to have this place exercised, this person exercised. And then my first actual field trip, for lack of a better term, was when they took us out to take psychic photographs. Okay. And it was I think it was a Saturday. It was bright sunlight, maybe 11, 12 o'clock in the afternoon, in the morning. And he's like, bring your camera. He goes, bring a roll of film, because this is before digital, You ever heard of something called Polaroid?
Yes.
Okay. I'm sorry, because it goes way back. We had Polaroid camera and then a 35 millimeter camera. And I was nervous. I was excited, but I was nervous. I didn't know what to expect. Tramping through a cemetery taking photographs. Just random photographs, shots of headstones. He said, a lot of times if you look at these old headstones, like even Center Street Cemetery here, if you go during the day, don't go after dark illegally. Go in there during the day and be respectful, obviously. And you can take photographs of some of the old headstones. There's headstones in there from 1600s, I think. And the oxidation on the stones, sometimes you can make out faces. You may not see them with the naked eye, but after you take your pictures, you may see them in the pictures. So this is why we were there. So, you know, I must have been taking pictures for 15 minutes or so, and Ed looks at me and goes, Joe, you got to take the lens cap off. I was so nervous that I had bought a brand new camera, too. I remember it was a Vivitar camera I had bought just for the occasion. And I was so nervous I forgot to take the lens cap off. So the first half of my pictures were just black, and there's nothing there, you know. So that's how I started out, taking what they call spirit photography, you know, psychic photographs. And, you know, just to break you in, I didn't actually go on my first case for a number of years because he wanted to make sure I was ready.
Was your first, you said you specialize in like demonology.
Yeah, right now, you know, I mean, I'll help anyone. We help people all over the world, and we don't charge for what we do, not a penny.
So what is the story of your first demon case?
Well, the first case that involved a very negative entity, negative energy, was in Bristol, Connecticut. And I was probably about your age, maybe 21, 22. I remember we were at a lecture at, it used to be the Ramada Inn in Meriden. It's still there. I don't know what it's called now. It's in Meriden there. And Ed gets a phone call during the lecture, and it's from a family that lived in Bristol. And this family was, later on, when I got there, I'll tell you, they were terrified. And Ed was like, okay, I'm going to have somebody come over there. So he calls me aside. He goes, take Brian, I think his name was. I haven't seen him in 30 years. He goes, take Brian with you and go over to this house. He goes, take your equipment, take photographs, get your tape recorders out, just let them run, see what you get. He goes. Meanwhile, he was planning with Archbishop McKenna to have the home blessed.
Okay.
And the family was being oppressed, and they weren't possessed. You know, possession is when something takes over your body. They were having a lot of poltergeist activity, dark shadows, foul smells, growling noises, scratching noises, knocking on the wall, things like that. Scared the bejesus out of them. So I get there, and mind you, this is the first case that I've actually gone in by myself, without the Warrens. I was there under their direction. So I knock on the door, and the family opens the door. You know, I remember they opened the door, and I'm like, yeah, I'm Joe Franke, I'm here. Ed and Lorraine Warren sent me. The door flies open, and they grab me, and they pull me in. And the whole family, like, collectively gives me this big hug. And like, oh my God, thank God you're here.
Savior.
And I'm like, I didn't know what to expect. Ed didn't tell me anything, and maybe he didn't know at the time, but I'm looking around. I come in the front door. To my right is the open kitchen with a dining room table. To the left was the living room. I remember it very vividly. And then there's a hallway, and down the hallway is a bathroom and a couple bedrooms. And I look over to my left in the living room, and everything this family owned, clothing, toys, bedding, mattresses, everything was in that living room. Basically what the family did is they were so afraid to live in their own home, which is a big pet peeve of mine. I'll get to that. Everything that these people owned, the clothing, everything, was in that room. They stuck together. They were so frightened that they wouldn't even go to the bathroom by themselves. What they used to do is they'd leave the bathroom door ajar. If someone go in and do their business, you know, and they would have their hand outside, and someone outside in the hallway would be standing there holding their hand. All right? This is how terrified they were. They were afraid to even go into the bathroom by themselves because they claimed that they would see images in the mirror. You know, they had like I think one of them said they had an old man staring back at them, this ugly, grotesque-looking thing. And I said, well, tell me what's going on. What prompted the phone call tonight? They said the family was in the living room / dining room area because it was a big open, it was a condo.
Okay.
And down the hallway, there's a bedroom at the end of the hallway, which seemed to be the epicenter of the activity. They saw these two, look like cloaked black figures. And they would come, they were probably almost as high as the ceiling. So your standard ceiling is about 8 feet. So they were over 7 feet tall, they said. And they didn't walk, they floated down the hallway towards them. And, you know, the family would so somebody screamed and they said that then they would dissipate, they would disappear. But the entire family would see this, not just one person. And there was also a baby involved, and they had said a few days prior to that, they had the baby in the bassinet in the living room again. The bedrooms are empty. There's nothing in the bedrooms. Everything was in the living room. And they said that they saw the same kind of figure, one of them this time, floated down the hall and went up to the bassinet and looked in, like it was bending over to look at the child. So this is the kind of stuff that would happen. They'd hear growling at night. They'd hear banging on the walls at night, scratching noises.
How long was this going on before?
This was going on, I don't think they were there that long. I don't recall. We're going back to early 90s probably, 89, 90, 91, in that time period. So this was I think this was on a Friday or a Saturday, probably a Friday night, because it was nighttime. We were at the lecture. And I spent the entire night there. I didn't sleep, but I told them, I said, look, I'm going to go in the back, because that's where they said these things came from. I'm going back there. I got to get evidence. It'll kill me. I got to get evidence. So I went back there with my video camera. I had a still, another camera, 35 millimeter. I had my tape recorder. I turned everything on and just let them go. Nothing happened. Nothing happened. Okay? My belief is it knew, these things have the wisdom of the ages. Okay? It knew why I was there. And it didn't want to mess with me. Not because it was afraid of me. It wanted to maintain its anonymity. It didn't want to be discovered. These things want to hide in the shadows, and they prey on the weak. I wasn't weak in the sense not physically strong, but spiritually. You need to be in a state of grace to go on these cases. Meaning you need to go to confession, confess your sins, be blessed by the priest, have communion. You want to be, your soul to be pure when you're going into any case, because you don't know what you're going to deal with. It could be, nothing. A lot of it, I think, is just psychosomatic. People watch too much TV. They watch too much of these TV shows. Have you ever seen the movie The Exorcist?
Yes.
Okay. You ever watched it by yourself at 3 in the morning? Probably not. Maybe you have. The Exorcist, I'll get that in a minute. I don't want to bounce around. I digress a lot. I jump around. But I'll talk about The Exorcist in a moment. So anyway, I set up shop in the back bedroom. The only thing that was on the floor, I think, was a couple of Legos, and yeah, I stepped on them. They hurt. But all the bedding, I said, all the bedding, everything, lamps, there wasn't anything in the room. Maybe just a cable wire. And then the closet, and they said they seemed to emanate from the closet area. So I had the closet door open, and I had my video camera trained on the closet the whole night. And I said to the family, I had somebody with me, I think it was Brian was his name. I said, we're going to camp out back here. I said, you go out in the living room and try to get some sleep, because they weren't getting any sleep. Yeah. So one of my biggest pet peeves is when someone has a home, either a single family residence or an apartment or a condo, you're paying money, whether it be rent, lease, or a mortgage, on your home, and you're too afraid to live there. Or you're afraid to go into the basement to do the laundry. Or you're afraid to go into the attic, because everything happens in the basement and the attic, right? I say that tongue in cheek, but people are afraid to live in their own home or be alone in their own home. So we stayed the night. The family got a little rest. They got a few hours sleep because they knew at least we were there. Yeah. And we believed them, of course. I can tell when someone's being untruthful with me. It's just something that you acquire, that kind of gift, when you've been doing this a long time. I do a lot of investigating before I even decide to take a case, because I want to make sure that, they're being truthful. And a lot of times people, it's not that they're being purposely untruthful. It's just that they really believe in their minds that this stuff is happening. Yeah. I've interviewed, families, and the husband say, I don't know, she's crazy. I don't see any of this stuff. And the wife's like, I don't know why you don't see it. It happens all the time. One of the questions I say, well, do you watch any of these TV shows? And I'm like, well, yeah, we like to watch this one, that one. I don't do TV shows anymore. I did a few back in the 90s, and I was, on a couple of shows. The show Ghost Hunters was offered to us, my buddy and I, back in 2002. They sent us an email. They wanted us to fly to LA and do a couple of pilot episodes. Where it would have went, I don't know, but we were one of their first choices for that show, and I turned it down. I'm in this work to help people. It's a vocation. It was a calling. It's not an occupation. As I said, we don't charge to help people. We may ask for them to cover our expenses. Say, if I'm flying somewhere, I got a case now I'm working on in San Antonio. It's pretty bad. I may have to go there. We ask the family if they have the means to cover our travel expenses. If they can't do it, I pay out of my pocket. I'm not going to say no. We're here to help people. We're not here to, you say, well, you don't have the money to pay for us to come down there. We're not coming down there. I've never turned anybody away. It's stressful, financially stressful sometimes, but, the reward that you get back is immeasurable. Just, knowing, the people that you've helped makes you feel so much better about yourself. So, I started to touch on the Exorcist movie. And we talked about, I don't know if we were on camera at the time, but we were talking about Ouija boards. The Exorcist, the true story, it's based on a true story. It was a 13-year-old or 14-year-old boy named Robbie in 1949. Okay, just a normal kid like yourselves, young man. And he started playing with the Ouija board with his aunt. Why? I don't know. It's one of the dumbest things you could do. It's a board game by Parker Brothers. It's not the game itself, the physical game. It's the intent behind it. So why would you buy a Ouija board? And especially if you buy it on second hand from a flea market or something, you don't know where that board's been or what it's been used for.
And that's the word you were talking about.
Doorway.
Doorway. Yes.
Using a Ouija board is a form of divination, and the Catholic Church preaches against divination. Okay? Things like the Ouija board, I mention that a lot because I've had a lot of Ouija board cases, and some of them didn't end well. Okay? The board is used, well, what other intention could you be using it for but to contact someone from the other side? And of course, the demonic is always out there because it hates us. Because we're made in God's image. Okay? We're all children of God. We're all brothers and sisters. In my belief, but the demonic hates us because it hates God. So they're always out to destroy us. And, they want to harm us. They want to destroy our families. They want to destroy our finances. They want to get us fired from our jobs. They want our marriages to crumble. And they sit there on the sidelines and they laugh. It's fun to them. Okay? And the fear that we give off just fuels them. So, that's why I said you have to be strong if you're going to battle these things, spiritually, psychologically, emotionally. The first time I was attacked, I was scared out of my mind. I was your age. Can you imagine getting picked up and thrown about 12 feet across the room and hitting the wall?
I probably was.
I was terrified. I was shaking, but I got up, dusted myself off, and I'm like, is that all you got? I said, I'm not leaving. No matter what. I said, you're the one that's leaving.
Stronger man than they are like that is your problem.
Most people, when I interview people for our organization, the War and Legacy Foundation, I'm a very tough interviewer because I got to make sure someone can handle that. No, if I'll pose the question to you guys, you're in a home and you're trying to help a family and you don't know what's going on, you've never been there before, and then all of a sudden the crap hits the fan. Things start happening. Dishes start flying out of the cupboards. The doors are slamming, opening and closing on their own. Windows are going up and down on their own. You see that on TV, Hollywood, but it happens. These things want to scare you. It's fun for them. They want to scare you. And so say this all starts happening. I mean, that's how it starts. With outward signs of manifestation. I mean, most people would be out of there, right? You'd be running for the nearest door.
Quick.
Right? And I wouldn't blame you. I wouldn't blame you. So I remember asking this one woman, she was a really nice lady. She lived in Michigan or something. She was, and you know, she wanted to become part of our foundation. And I said, well, how long have you been doing this work? She said, probably about 5 years. I said, well, have you been doing the work for 5 years, or you've just been fascinated in the occult and ghosts for 5 years? She said, there's a big difference. I said, have you had any formal education on it? Meaning, have you hooked up with a team that's experienced and been shown the way like I was? Not everybody, it's very rare to be lucky like I was and been taught by the Warrens themselves. They were my mentors. I was their protege. And she's like, well, no, I've just been doing this on my own and with my girlfriend for about 5 years. I'm like, well, what have you been doing? Oh, you go to cemeteries and public places that are alleged to be haunted and things like that. And I said, okay. I said, you know, I'm not holding that against her, but these aren't the kind of people I'm looking for. I'm looking for people that are a little more experienced and are not going to go run screaming from the house like their hair is on fire. Because that's you know, that's leaving the family hanging, and it's embarrassing for themselves and for the foundation. So, you know, I asked her these questions. I said, and then it gets worse. I said, and then you get picked up by some unseen force and you get thrown across the room. I said, what do you think? Because I know it's never happened to you before, correct? I said, and she said, no. And she got deer in headlights. She's looking at me. This is through Zoom meeting. And I said, well, what do you think you would do? And she paused for a moment and she said, well, I wouldn't run. Really? I said, I would have respected you more if you'd just been honest with me and said I'd probably, you know, crap my pants.
Yeah.
You know? So I said, okay, well, thank you. And then I had a few other questions for her, and I denied her application. Because here's why. If I let people like that in the foundation, and I have a case in her area, and this woman and her friends, you know, if they're accepted into the foundation, that you have to be foundation members, and they go in on a case, and something happens to them, I'm responsible for them. All right? I couldn't live with myself if something happened to them. You got to make sure they're ready, they're prepared. You know. So I get very long-winded, guys. So I'm sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Deb, any other questions? I'm sure you guys got many.
What's your most recent case you worked on?
Well, I'm working cases all the time. I've got probably about 4 or 5 active ones right now all over the country. The recent one just had a call with the homeowner and her daughter is in San Antonio. They've moved 5 times in 11 years. It follows them. It follows them. And it's pretty bad. And some of the things that I won't say because it's pretty bad. I don't want to say to you guys and scare you or anything, but so that's in San Antonio, and then there's 2 cases in Michigan, there's one in Ohio, there's one in Sacramento that's pretty bad. She may have a demonic attachment to her. You ever see the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose?
Yes.
Annalise Michelle, it's based on a true story. The woman has lost 50 pounds in about 2 months because the entity is not letting her eat or drink. So it's affecting her medically.
Is this the case for a lot of your cases? Like, do demonic energies follow people?
They can. Energies can attach themselves to people, objects. You know, that's why I do caution people that go antiquing. I'm not saying if you like to go antiquing, you're going to bring something home with you. I'm just saying, be cautious. I have a case in Rhode Island that's calmed down quite a bit now. But the gentleman collects war artifacts like bayonets and stuff like that, and swords. And he'll buy them like through eBay, stuff like that, from all over the world. I'm like, and then he's got some activity in his home. He said, the team went in there. They weren't part of our foundation. They got scared off by something, and the guy's like, Joe, they couldn't get out of here fast enough. They basically packed up their stuff and left. He goes, they won't return my phone calls. They won't call me. I don't know what they captured. They haven't shown me anything. So, fortunately, I was fortunate enough to get a hold of one of the members of that team, who was the case manager. title they give themselves. And she was a really nice girl. I mean, she's a young girl, maybe 24, 25. And I said, listen, young lady, I said, you know, I don't mean to pry. I said, but this family has now contacted the Warren Legacy Foundation, and I need to know what happened. I need to know what I'm getting into and what this family is dealing with. I said, would you be willing to share with me? She's like, Joe, I'm so glad you got a hold of me. I was trying to find somebody to tell, someone to get help for this family because they were way in over their heads. This is what I call thrill seekers. These groups, they go out there, and now you're misrepresenting yourself. You're getting into somebody's home. A family contacts you, and they're frightened, much like this family in Bristol I was telling you about. But you don't know what you're doing. You know, I just want to go out there and capture something on camera so I can throw it up on my social media pages, on YouTube, and get a bunch of likes and stuff like that. You can't do that because this is a prime example because they knew they got in over their heads. They ran out of the house, basically, according to what the homeowner told me. And I said to the girl, I said, well, I hope your group took down their Facebook page, took down their YouTube channel, and sold their camera equipment. But no, they're still out there doing, you know, they're still doing this work. When they left a family hanging, and eventually they find their way to someone like me, you know, or some other, there are other people that do this work, good people. But I got wind of it, and I'm working with the family now. So at any given time, I've got a handful of cases going on. I am the CIO for the Warren Legacy Foundation. That's the Chief Investigative Officer. The foundation has members worldwide. We have people in Spain, Portugal, Costa Rica, Australia, New Zealand, the UK, Germany, and of course across the United States. My job is we have regional directors for these locations. So I have a regional director for like the Southeast, Florida, Georgia, stuff like that. Regional director for the Midwest, regional director for the western portion of California. When they get a case where they need help, then they call me. Like if they need my input and they say, Joe, can you go on this Zoom call with the client? I'm like, yeah, all right. So my wife's not too happy with me because I'm on the phone every night. Thank God she works nights. I'm on the phone just about every night on a call. You know, sometimes they're not that bad. You know, sometimes I say, you know, look, personally and professionally, I really don't think you have much to worry about. This is what I want you to do. Try this and then get back to us. Let us know how this works out. But these other couple of cases, the one in Sacramento and the one in San Antonio, and there's one in Michigan, it's pretty bad. Demonic, I don't know yet.
Okay.
I'm not saying that there's a demon, but there's something very negative. It could be a negative human spirit. Because, hey, if you're a jerk in life, you're probably a jerk after you pass away.
Okay.
You know? Like, again, remember I mentioned earlier about free will? Not every spirit goes on. Whatever your belief system is. But, you know, some spirits remain earthbound for a variety of reasons. Maybe they feel they have unfinished business. Maybe they feel they're not going to be accepted on the other side because they were jerks in life. You know? And maybe they just get their jollies off of haunting people. You know? So they're not on demonic, which is rare. They're just negative jerks, you know, and they want to mess with people.
Now, could you tell us what the other team saw when they went in there?
Well, one of the things she did tell me, and she said she was there, was that there was a can of caviar on the counter in the kitchen, and nobody was near it, and the thing exploded. And they said they heard growling and they heard scratching. That's what I was told.
Okay.
I asked for evidence of that. I said, did you capture it on film? And she said, I think the guy that runs the organization, the group, and I'm not going to mention the group's name. I wouldn't do that publicly. And she goes, I don't have access to it.
So you never got it?
I said, if your true intention was to help this family, then you're going to tell me anything I want to know. Because now it's in my lap, and I'm trying to help. She was extremely helpful. She goes, Joe, I'll tell you whatever you want, but she goes, I wasn't the only one there. I don't know everything that happened. And they hadn't even had a team meeting afterwards. I would have a team meeting and say, all right, everybody, let's get together, get all your evidence together, let's see what we have. They haven't, and we're talking like this happened in April, and I got the case in July. It was like 3 months. And the guys, like, they just ghosted him. No pun intended, but, it's a word that we use today, right? They just ghosted the guy, and they wouldn't call him back. They wouldn't give him any information. So, but this young lady was very helpful. But she said that one thing that did happen, physical manifestation, was this can of caviar. And I asked them, was the can open? And they said, no. The homeowner said, no. It was just sitting on the counter. And it exploded. The cap went flying. Actually, the can cap landed in one of their equipment bags. So I'm like, okay, that's not, normally what happens to a can of caviar. But it didn't alarm me. I said, okay. I always tell people, let's try and look scientifically at this. Is there a natural explanation for what just happened? Okay, don't jump to the supernatural right away. Let's think about this logically. Why did this happen? And that comes from, I got that from Ed Warren, because he grew up in a haunted house. And he told me, as a young kid, he would see these spirits in his room, like come out of his closet. And his father was a state trooper in Connecticut, and his father would say, son, there's a reason why everything happens. There's a reason why that happened, or whatever. Just kind of poo-pooed it. So I'm like, all right, well, if you do an exhaustive investigation into if something could happen naturally, and you can't come up with anything, maybe it's time to look at something supernatural. I'm like, well, did something hit this can? Did it fall? And they're like, no, it was just sitting on the counter. I wasn't there. Yeah. I said, well, did anybody have any cameras rolling? I guess they didn't. You could hear what they told me was the can exploding on an audio tape from a recorder that was in another room. And I'm like, look, okay, I'm not saying you're making this up, but my old adage is if there's no evidence, if it's not documented, it didn't happen. Because, all right, I'm believing you, that this happened. All right, well, did anything else happen? Well, we saw these orbs on the Ring camera. I'm discounting that. Because they sent me some of the Ring camera footage. One of them, the guy was freaking out about, it was a spider web. It literally was a spider web. And it was blowing in the breeze. And from the light, the porch light, it was illuminating it. And I'm like, it's a spider web. Or it's a cobweb. I said, it's nothing to worry about. The orbs could be dust, bugs, water vapor. I can usually tell if it's some kind of energy because, dust kind of floats. It doesn't have a trajectory. I've seen orbs that'll come, stop, reverse direction. Maybe it's a bug. I don't know. We've done tests and studies on this stuff, but orbs don't impress me. But I said, listen, in my personal and professional opinion, as I'm telling you right now, I don't think you have any issues to worry about. I said, but I will tell you this. Start a journal. Go back as far as you can remember and just write down. Doesn't have to write a novel. Just the what, when, who, what happened, when it happened, who was present, who witnessed it. Okay? Write everything down because you're going to forget. Yeah. If you're like me, you're going to forget. Write it down, just bullet point it, keep a journal moving forward. I last talked to him a couple months ago. I said, I want to know, here's my personal phone number, call or text me, I don't care if it's 3 in the morning, I may not hear the phone, but I know if you're calling me at 3 in the morning that you're pretty scared. I haven't heard anything, knock on wood. So no news is good news, hopefully. So that case seems to be okay. I can't explain the caviar thing, but I haven't seen the video of it. The girl thinks that they caught it on video, but she didn't have it. And it's really hard to get other teams to work together and share information. And that's why I said what I said to her. I said, if you really wanted to help these people, then you would help me, because I'm trying to help them now. People get standoffish, and they'll say, well, this is our case. I said, look, it's not your case. You failed, and you failed miserably. I said, I don't care about the case. I'm trying to help these people. They're frightened. The guy was 39 years old, the son, because the father, who was in his 60s, is the one that contacted us. The son told me, his dad and him were on a Zoom meeting. He told me that he locks himself in his bedroom at night because it makes him feel safe. Okay, and he doesn't come out until the morning. 39 years old now, a grown man. I said, well, let me just tell you this. There's nothing demonic there. Like, I can tell you that right now. I would feel it. I said, if there was something demonic there, a locked door is not going to save you. I said, I don't think you have anything to worry about. And I was on the phone for a couple hours. And I'm hoping I could see some relief in their faces, and the fact that I haven't heard from them in a while tells me that things might have quieted down, or maybe some of it was up here. And again, I'm not accusing them of making it up. People that experience phenomena, in their mind, it's real, it happened. Okay? But maybe something happened, but it wasn't to the degree that you're making it. You're making a mountain out of a molehill, so to speak. You know, it's my job to comfort them, to listen to them, to say, you're not crazy. You know, because people, like, I was afraid to tell anybody they think I'm crazy. I'm like, well, I'm not going to think that, because ghosts are very real. Spirits, demonic forces are very real. I'm saying that because I've been doing this for almost 37 years of my life. And I haven't been wasting that much time. My entire adult life I've been doing this work. I've seen things I could tell you, but that would take a lot more time than we have. I'm not trying to insult anyone, but I'm telling you, don't misrepresent yourself. If you don't know something, ask someone that does. Ask for help. Call me. Here's my card. Here's my home number. Here's my home email.
Welcome back to the studio. I have a lot of respect for Mr. Franke, his morality, his beliefs, and his loyalty to his clientele. I would love to get to the level where he is at, where if someone contacts his organization and needs help, if he can't find a field team that can do the work, he hops on a plane and he goes and he helps these individuals out. I think that is every paranormal investigator's dream, to be able to do that with folks and not have to charge them for travel expenses or lodging or something. But until you get to that point, it's a challenge to be able to keep up on your equipment or your paranormal equipment, or even to put a few dollars towards your family, let alone be able to pay for your own travel expenses. If you would like to help Paranormal Papa investigations to reach that level, you can, of course, donate to the channel, to the group, at our PayPal account. That is, of course, www.paypal.me/MrHistory2020. The paranormal field is a great field to be in, and every day I see para-unity continuing to grow across the globe, where teams from every country, from every walk of life, from every language, can go out, investigate the paranormal, share their evidence, and slowly provide the proof that the paranormal truly exists. Don't forget, if you or your team would like to guest on Paranormal Papa Podcast, just drop us a line at midwestparahistoricsociety @gmail.com, and we'll get a hold of you and work out a good time to record together. If you have stories of the paranormal, same thing. midwestparahistoricsociety @gmail.com. But that's all we've got for you today. Hope you enjoyed episode 15 of the Paranormal Papa Podcast, coming to you from Ferocious Feline Studios in Cassopolis, Michigan. Until next time, take care of yourselves, take care of each other. God bless you. God love you. We do. And happy hunting.